Why is nobody using your product? You build something cool. You know it solves people's problems, but it's not getting any attention. Why? In 2026, building is easier than getting traction. And if we want open source projects to reach the masses, we need to learn how to market them. So in episode 82 of Tool Use, we're joined by Mano Tsiris. He's a serial exited founder and now the head of growth at Optimal AI. Today, we're going to discuss how to make sure you build something people actually want, how to maximize the chance that you get those people's attention, and what you should be doing today before you even have something to sell. So please enjoy this conversation with Mano Tsiris.
I have been an entrepreneur since I was 12 years old. I actually started my journey selling ebooks online. Fun fact. So that was actually when I was in my beginning stages. I was like, I just want to get into it. Started selling ebooks. I moved into e-commerce. I ended up building 5 different e-commerce brands doing drop shipping. I grew those to around 20K MRR, and then pretty much decided to start an AI startup with a few friends. And then we recently sold that last year, back when I was in university, or right when after I graduated university, sold it in July of 2025. And then now I am building a new AI company called Optimal AI.
Super cool. And having that entrepreneurial background, I also remember as a kid doing little odd jobs for money, but not in the ebook space. Were you technical? Have you always kind of had that technical aptitude, or was it just the opportunity was there and you figured it out as you went?
You know what? I'm absolutely not technical. When I first started, but especially when I was 12, I had no idea. I was actually horrible at math. Didn't know how to code, didn't know any of that stuff. And it was literally just me going on YouTube University, and literally learning from scratch. Like I took 1 week and I just sat down and learned everything there was to learn about ebooks and how to resell them, like how do you have master resale rights, where do you get them from, how do you where do you what do you do to sell them? Because again, I was 12 years old, I didn't have any money, right? It was like I had to find free ways to market that market the ebooks to get them sold. And so it was, I never had a technical background. It was just more creative destruction, doing different things and figuring out what worked.
I love that. Yeah, just general problem solving. That's what entrepreneurship is. You see a problem, you fix it.
Exactly. And again, in that case, especially when you're selling ebooks, it's like such a specific market, right? And again, like whenever you sell anything, you have to like very much tailor the approach and the offer to like what it is that you're selling, right? Like if it's an ebook, it's like, okay, what is it about? Like who's going to care about this, right? And then so for something I did when I was first getting into it, I was like, okay, if I was selling an ebook at that time for yoga, like yogis, right? And so that was the first one I ever sold. And I was like, where do I find people who would care about this? And so I was thinking, and I was like, oh my God, Facebook groups. Like I know that there's a bunch of Facebook groups online, like whatever. And I knew that you could get like banned for just putting them in there, like just, plugging stuff. So I was like, let me find a creative way to like talk about it. And so I started joining these groups. I started becoming a thought leader in these groups, actually contributing and becoming like the spiritual Zen master in these groups, like understanding like meditation, right? All the chakras, like all these things. And I'd contribute to people. And then eventually, when I was like, hey guys, I've actually been reading this really good book lately. It's taught me a lot of different things. Well, I plugged it, and then I started getting my first sales, and a lot of them. And by the way, no one here knew I was as young as I was. And so after that, I was like, wow. So I've just been able to turn $0 because again, like selling ebooks online, you could get them for free and then resell them. And I was trying to turn $0 into 500. And I was like, if I could do this with ebooks, what else could I do with, these other products that you could probably sell? And that's how I kind of segued into the rest of the entrepreneurship grind.
Love to dive into that. As I'm sure you're aware now, working with an AI company, a lot of people here are engineering mindset. They just want to build, create. They don't really have the experience or even the mindset for going out and selling the products. They just want to build it, go from 0 to 1, create something in the world. What would you say is something that they should do in terms of a mindset shift or just general approach? How can they go from a builder to someone who's actually selling what they build?
I love this. I actually do really love this question because we've we're at a very, very distinct point in time where it used to be way harder to build the product and then take it to market, whereas it's flipped now. Right now, it's really easy to build the product, but it's really hard to get out to market and distribution, right? I always say distribution is the number one thing you need to focus on. But the mindset shift, I would say, or the biggest thing that I've taken into account is talk to people before you start wasting your time building, right? Because a lot of the time, the biggest mistake I see people make is they start building something before they even validate if people even want it, right? And so the easiest way I would say to even validate, and this is what I do for all my companies now, like before I start anything, I go and I talk to people, and people are always like, "Hey, but where do you get these people? Where do you find them? How do you talk to them? How do you know if there's a need or not?" I go to LinkedIn, easy peasy. I literally will go and search them, and if you have Sales Navigator, it's even easier. You can just search for like job titles in different regions. But I look for people in my area. So I live in Toronto. I look for people who are Toronto native based in the profession or the persona that I want. And I basically just text, I'm like, hey, I'm a founder, I'm a serial founder, or if you're starting, you could say, hey, I'm building something new. I'm looking to get feedback as I'm building. It's my first time, would love to hop on a 10-minute call. Something like that. Something easy peasy, like chill. And then usually people will be like, oh yeah, I'd love to. People love being the first to like be like, oh my God, I know this person who's building this cool thing, like, and you can use these calls to basically evaluate whether or not your idea is a good idea, if you should build it. And then also, all the people you talk to are technically your first customers, right? Because you can always go back to them after you build the product and say, oh, I actually have this product ready if you want to try it. Like, do you want to try it and like maybe pay me $1 for it? Like, as long as you get $1, it's like, okay, they're willing to pay for it, right? Now, how much more are they willing to pay? But I would say when conducting this call is another thing, after you get the people on the phone to conduct the calls, I would say there's a really good book called The Mom Test. And yeah, yeah, I know.
I had it written down as my next question.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. You know what? I conduct all of my discovery calls using the Mom Test framework because again, it's the Mom Test for those of you who don't know, it is basically a book that outlines how you should properly do discovery. It's like if you were to go up to your mom, what questions would you ask your mom to get an unbiased response, right? From talking about your idea. So you wouldn't be like, "Do you like this? Like, do you like this recipe book that I made?" Obviously, your mom's gonna be like, "Yes," because she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. But a better question would be something like, Mom, on a day-to-day basis, do you use recipe books that often? What kind of recipes do you usually look for when you try to cook? And asking questions that make the other person expand. Because then you can dig in and there's questions you can ask within the question. Right? Like if they're like, oh well, I really like to look for Mexican food. That's kind of what I like to cuisines and like what I like to cook. Why Mexican food? Is it like is there a reason specifically? Is it because the ingredients are readily available? Like, what is it? And then they go in depth, and you're like, okay, so maybe I should make a cookbook for moms who like Mexican recipes. And then it's like, boom. Then you have the really tailored approach. That's my ramble, but I'll kind of keep it at that for any follow ups.
Yeah, no, because that's excellent. I was actually, like I said, I was going to follow with the mom test question anyways, because there's a mindset where people identify a problem in their brain. They want to solve that problem. And like you said, if they don't validate, it's one thing. But also there's the issue where people almost can think too broadly and they're like, oh, I want to build this holistic solution for everything. You talk to someone, they're like, yeah, I see value. But if you dig in, there might be an underlying issue where if you can kind of tighten things up and focus on a specific niche or specific aspect of that grand vision you have, you might produce a lot more value because instead of trying to, boil the ocean, you can just have this one little problem that people have and just solve it. Just get rid of that wrinkle. And all of a sudden you're adding value and they'll pay you for it.
And it's so funny because there's a lot of people like to say, and this is like a common mindset shift that people need to make, that everything's saturated. Like they're like everything's saturated. I'm like that everything's too competitive. I'm like that's not true at all. I mean there is competition, sure. There's a fierce competition and everything, but it boils down to your differentiation and your position, right? You could be the same company as another company, and your differentiate if your positioning is different, it's a whole different ball game, right? And so like that's a huge thing I would say is also like I'd say before you start building the product, focus on the distribution aspect. How are you going to get it to people? How are you going to talk to people who are already, you know, having the issue that you're trying to solve? And also prior to even doing that, right, I would even say the ideation phase. I also have a few cents on how to ideate an idea before you even talk to people, before you build it, right? So like the first step. But we can get into that more so after.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. There's one thing you mentioned with the thought leadership, and I think it's easy for people who are passionate about a certain subject to just start sharing their thoughts. Where if they know more than the average person, you don't have to be a world-class PhD expert or anything. As long as you know more than the people who are searching for those answers, you can become that voice. And if you're consistent enough, start to build reputation, more people go to you. It just kind of works. Do you have any other advice for thought leadership? Does building in public work, or how do you recommend people start taking the plunge from I have knowledge that I've never shared with anyone before, but I want to build this reputation in this network. Where do I begin?
Ooh, great question. I would say 100% it's so powerful. Building in public is the most powerful thing. And it's actually what I used to do at my last company, One Click. And that's pretty much like our entire go-to-market strategy was building in public, but it was also like we had other but like, it was a huge contributor, right? Because everyone started knowing our team because we were posting online. We were posting on, everyone, it was funny because everyone in the team called me Momager. like Mano the Momager, like Chris Jenner, because I would force everyone to post. I'd force everyone to post on LinkedIn, on Instagram, all these places, because I was like, the more distribution we have across different channels, the more our brand is out there and the more we're going to be known, right? And again, like a product, you could have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. Right? And so like you just have to be more known. So I'd say to start, definitely LinkedIn. I mean, most people are on LinkedIn in terms of their professionalism. Depends, I guess, what you're doing in terms of your industry, but for majority of the people, LinkedIn's a great place to start. Post tips, tricks, and what you're doing. Literally, post the bad things too. People don't like posting like the bad stuff that happens, but like those are some of the most viral posts that get you like the most demos, right? Like I like previously last week I posted a post about me going and hand delivering donuts around Toronto to tech companies. And that was one of my best performing posts, right? Like, it got a lot of impressions, and it was like resulted in a lot of people messaging me and be like, "Oh, what are you building? Like, I'd love to like learn more," right? And so you never know where these things are going to come. And even like people like Adam from RB2B, it's like huge company in terms of like the website tracking, web visitor tracking, and he is fully bootstrapped from LinkedIn. Like he literally got all of his traffic from his LinkedIn audience, which is amazing. Imagine not having to pay for marketing. Like that's the biggest goal, my biggest goal ever.
Do you have any advice on trying to make bits of content contributing to thought leadership multi-purpose, where say we do a podcast episode and then I turn into a blog or post? A lot of that feels like it's been diminished with AI, where people try to automate this pipeline and it doesn't quite have the same tone. And I don't know, just your thoughts or advice on taking one bit of content or one idea someone has and try to maximize the impact of it.
Yes. Oh, I love this. Repurposing. This actually was one of my other businesses I used to do,
Right.
repurposing. But I would say the biggest way you can leverage this is, say you do a podcast, like let's say we're gonna use this podcast and we're gonna repurpose it afterwards. I would say you could first, instead of making a boring blog post, because again, like blog posts now are more for bots than they are for humans, right? At this point, it's for AEO. And so what you can do is make it super valuable. So like instead of saying, here's a recap of our episode that we had, right? You could say, here are the 10 biggest or the 10 key things that you can do to take your product to market without any marketing experience. And then whatever. You don't have to mention it's a podcast, right? And then at the bottom you can say if you would like to view this, because again, one thing with AEO and LLMs is they love citing multi I guess channeled content, where it's like there's videos, there's audio, there's text, right? There's graphs, there's tables. And so the more you can incorporate those things within your post, it actually makes it perform better. And so I would say that's one example, right? And then, for example, there's other tools like Opus Clip that can cut up your clips into multiple formats, and then you can paste them on different social channels like Instagram, YouTube Shorts, etc. Again, LLMs really love citing YouTube, and so I would say definitely make sure your content is up on YouTube as well. Just long form, short form, everything, because the more that's out there, the more content there is for the LLMs to ingest. And then I'd also say, like, if you have a newsletter, right? A lot of people overlook the newsletter approach, but I mean, for most times you can do it for free on Loops. Like for example, Loops, like you do fully free, collect your first like 1,000 email subscribers, and then literally just market to them as much as you want, right? Like a lot of people do this. It's a way to build your personal brand. It's also a way to showcase your thought leadership, especially if you do a podcast like this, right? It's like we talked about, these like what do people care about? First, ask yourself that. What do people care about? And then after you figure out what those people care about, you mold the messaging around that. So if this podcast is about like how to take your product to market with no marketing experience, we broke down the 10 ways to take your product to market with no um, marketing experience, right? And then you break them down, right? And then so like it's just examples like that, but there's so many ways you can reuse content. You can even also put it into a podcast platform, again, like Spotify, right? You can just like literally take the audio of this, put it into the Spotify podcast, and it will distribute it also. Like, so you'll be multi-present across everything. I'd say there's so many ways like you could do this. You can also give it to UGC creators and they can make other accounts. There's even people that their whole job is to get you views. So you literally give them clips. So you can give them clips from a podcast, and their whole job is to repost those clips in ways that will get more views. It's like pay-per-view kind of campaigns on TikTok. You probably see them on TikTok where you see like Mel Robbins, like her like frame saying like one quote or two quotes and they go viral. It's like those aren't Mel Robbins. Those are other people that they hired to basically distribute their clips.
Very interesting. And when you talk about repurposing, is there a balance you try to hit for quality versus quantity. Like if I take my shorts and flood, like just try to post them everywhere, no real strategy, is that spray and pray approach going to work, or do you have to tailor to each platform to try to like maximize the reach there?
Definitely tailored to each platform. I think with AI also there's so much spam that comes out nowadays. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of spam. Like, but the good thing is because there's so much spam, if you make good content, it stands out, right? And so the content that's the best all automatically floats to the top. But when you say go on like LinkedIn, for example, people on LinkedIn care about different things than people on Instagram, right? If you have a
Mhm.
funny clip, say for example, you have a funny joke or something funny meme that happens in your podcast, post that on TikTok, post that on Instagram. People go on those platforms for leisure, right? The whole purpose of being on those platforms is to relax your head, right? Is to just relax, chill, vibe. Versus LinkedIn, people go on LinkedIn because they're like, okay, I'm in work mode. I want to learn something. I want to grow. Same with YouTube, right? And so LinkedIn and YouTube kind of have a similar persona in that way where like people go to like either learn. You do also go to YouTube for entertainment, but I've seen that when you do like let's say a podcast like this, it's going to be more applicable on platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, unless there's funny moments. If there's funny moments, publish that all over LinkedIn, over Instagram and TikTok, and then also Twitter. Uh, Twitter's not really big on video content, and so what I would usually say is create threads from your post. So like as I said before, I keep on using this example of like top 10 ways. You could again you can make a thread on Twitter X and literally be like, here are some I just spoke to so and so about whatever. Here are the top lessons for going to market with no marketing experience for free or something. And then each thread is a different thing, right? Like that's and then you just repurpose the episode that way. And it expands your reach, but it's for a different platform, different audience, but it still connects because it's in the format that they know and they love.
I will say there's one exception that stands out to me on LinkedIn. Renee Shaw posts some of the most unhinged, cringy content, and it's excellent. And she's building quite the following. She promotes for this service called TLDV. Got me talking about it unpaid.
Yeah.
But she's able to kind of take this classical professional setting and almost just meme on it and just be like, isn't it so ridiculous how serious we're trying to take things when it's just the internet anyways? So, do you have any thoughts on kind of going against the grain in terms of what people expect on the platform, like the shock factor that comes from going like curveball?
I mean, that's how you get attention. This is like PR 101, right? Like the more that you can do to stand against the grain, the better, right? The thing is though, it's frowned upon. So it depends on the person themselves, right? Are you willing to put yourself out there in a way that will make that again, not everyone likes that energy, right? Some people are like, that's so
Yeah.
unprofessional, blah, blah. You have to be okay with that. If you are okay with being disliked, which I think is a beautiful superpower to have, not giving a damn, then go for it, right? Like I would say go for it. That's why I went and delivered hand delivered donuts last week because I was like, it makes me stand out. Versus all the cold emails. We're so inundated with cold emails nowadays that I'm like, how do I stand out? If I deliver a box of donuts to their office, I think I stand out more than a cold email. So it's things to go against the grain that make you seem like you're like, oh shit, this person's creative. They actually went the extra mile, right? And this Renee, I've actually never seen her content, but now I'm going to look it up because I'm curious now. I love that content. I love unhinged stuff. I love people being their authentic selves, and I think that on these social platforms specifically, when we're talking about this, people want to see authenticity. It's a huge thing because it's like now everything's AI. I always see the M dashes in every time I see an M dash now in a post, I'm immediately like this is AI, I'm skipping it. Like immediately, right? And so
Yeah.
the more we can humanize ourselves, the more we stand out, especially in an AI age, which is our biggest advantage.
Now, and I will say to contrast that, when you were giving the example earlier about top 10 reasons or whatever, even the way you delivered it was compelling. I was like, oh, I got to know more. But we see so much of these like very repeatable templates for posts where it's just, you've seen it 100 times before. It might blur in, but it might be standoutish enough that you kind of pay attention to it. Do you have any advice on maybe not necessarily like how to make a good hook, but just how you can have something that will stand out, knowing that everyone on social media is trying to optimize for attention? How do we kind of make an attention grabbing headline when everyone's trying to make an attention grabbing headline?
That's a great question. Again, I think you're hitting the nail on the head here with the with the right topics. I mean, I would say that the hook, and I always say this, the hook is the most foundational important part of any piece of content, whether it be a video, whether it be text, whether it be a blog, anything. Like it is the most because if you don't get the hook right, the rest, no one's gonna read the rest, or no one's gonna watch the rest. Like the first 5 seconds of a video 3 seconds actually now, sorry, the first 3 seconds of a video is the only attention you have to catch someone's, or is the only time you have to catch someone's attention. To come up with a good one, always start with the problem first. Start with the problem and then follow it up with the solution directly after, right? And so how that could look is like, for example, or I mean, like that's one example, I guess. There's many ways to identify a hook. It depends on the context first. But I've seen the best hooks work when they've established a problem framing, but they also right after establish that they've solved the problem. So people who also and relate to that situation are also like, oh shoot, I can learn from this, right? Like this is something that I can learn from it. So I'm gonna read the post and then whatever. And then usually it ends up being like one of those posts where like, oh, comment below and I'll give you a free PDF or something, right? And it's a lead gen, but it worked, right? And for example, it could be something like Claude, I've been trying Claude Code, or like Claude Code has been killer for go-to-market. I just built an employee that handles all my cold outreach and gets 7 demos booked a day, right? Like, I'm like, oh shoot, I've been thinking about using Claude Code myself to build something for go-to-market. I haven't known how. This guy did the same thing. Let me see what he's doing. And then I read it and I'm like, oh shoot. And then I read the whole post, right? Because then they get you with the hook. It's the hook is like, what does the other person want, right? Like if I'm making this post, you have to be super specific. Who am I making this post for? And that's what they say when you build in public, especially with a team of people, figure out what each person in the team, what persona is each person in the team going after, and only make content, each of you guys, to that persona. Whether the CEO says he's making content for the CEOs, for other CEOs, and I'm making content for other salespeople, sales leaders, whatever, right? That differentiates what kind of content we make and how we tailor our offer. Because again, you can have a great post, but if you don't have a good offer, then it's for nothing, right? Because then at the end of the day, like if you're trying to generate leads, you're not going to generate any leads if the offer's not good enough at the end.
Very cool. So that is something that I've struggled with. And I guess one scientific approach that you always hear about is A/B testing, where try to do very similar piece of content with as granular a change as possible so you can kind of just like measure. Do you have any advice on, is the literal A/B testing appropriate? Should we try to mass spam and just tweak like one little thing in each variable, or sorry, tweak one variable in each piece of content? Or how can we start taking someone like myself who's not great at developing a good hook and just try to see what is it that people have an appetite for? How can I take this content, which is valuable, and make sure it reaches as many people as possible?
Big thing would be go and see what others are doing, learn from the public, right? And what I actually say is make a post database, okay? Where you save posts that you love. So what I do, this is a religious behavior I do now. Whenever I go through, say, LinkedIn or TikTok or anything, and a post stops me from scrolling, or it stops me from like, I catch my attention, I have to read, and I'm like, oh, I immediately save the post. I save the post because I'm like, this was a good post because it caught my attention when I was scrolling through. Because usually I don't. I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I don't care. If something catches my post, I know it's a good post. I save it, and then what I do with it is I feed it into Gemini. And I feed all these posts, like say for LinkedIn, I feed all these posts to LinkedIn, and I ask it, look for the patterns in these posts. What do they do well? Like what is it that each of these posts do well in terms of their structure and in terms of how they hook the reader? And then basically Gemini will give you a breakdown. It'll say, well, a lot of these posts are different, but they all do these key things very similarly, right? They all do these very specific things similarly. And typically, the 3 things that always come up are the hook. Always they have a powerful hook, two-line hook, not long. I think it's between like max 25 words in the hook, like nothing more than 25 words. So all of them have like a 25-word hook, right? One line in the beginning, one line after, and then it cuts off because LinkedIn cuts off, right? The hook's there. The body is all education. It's teaching, making the reader more valuable, feel more valuable to themselves because now they know something new. And the end is always a compelling hook or CTA, like a rehook, right? Rehooks that takes them into the CTA. If you get those 3 things right, you can pretty much create virality in your content. Same with video. That's the thing. It's like with video, I personally love video more because I love being on camera. I love talking to people. But it works interchangeably for any platform, right? You just need to get those 3 things right. And then you can pretty much calculate your, this is what Mr. Beast does, right? You can calculate your virality by making these things very systemic and scientific in your building.
Nice. For measuring this type of thing, is looking at the number of likes and impressions enough? Are there other analytics we should pay attention to? how can we take something that might not be as drastic as viral, non-viral, but things that are just like kind of edging away from each other, trending the right way, if you will? How can we identify those positive bumps?
Definitely impressions. Impressions is a big one because again, impressions shows you how valuable the platform thinks your content is. If the platform thinks there's value in your content, then it will give you more impressions. This is like across all platforms, right? The biggest, and I will say, the biggest virality factor in terms of getting your post more views is comments and shareability. Though, and that's across everything. That's not just LinkedIn. That's like literally LinkedIn, that's Instagram, that's TikTok, that's everything. The more comments you have, it tells the algorithm specifically, oh shoot, people are actually like they care to comment, like they're actually interacting with this, that there's something engaging about this post. There's something engaging about this post. People are here, especially if they're tagging other people. The algorithm actually boosts you even more because you're bringing other people onto the platform, right? You're bringing them, and so they can serve them more ads, they can make more money. The whole point of any of these platforms is to keep you on as long as possible. If you can do that with your post, which again with comments and shares, you're doing that because you're basically inviting people to come see the post, right? And so the more you do that, the more you can incentivize that virality piece. I would say don't focus on like vanity metrics like likes. I don't really like focus on them because again, like some posts I have are like have like 79 engagements on LinkedIn, where like 79 engagements, whatever, like two reposts, but they have like 25,000 impressions, right? So I'm like, you can't really tell. And some of them have like 100 likes, but only like 10,000 impressions. So I'm like, you can't really. So I always go for the impressions because I'm like, okay, the impressions tells me that this is a content format that LinkedIn's algorithm actually enjoys promoting, right? It knows that people like it. So that's kind of a frame of mind I use whenever I do any of this content strategizing.
Amazing. I'd love to jump to ideation, but was there anything else in content you wanted to let the audience know about?
Oh, I mean, I can go on for content forever because this is what like I mean most of my life. I'm also a content creator. I also another thing I do is I have a food blog, and we've grown it to around 13,000 followers at this point, just organically from content. So I have a lot to share, but well, I'll go into the ideation because I feel like for the audience, this is a really important topic, especially if they're building. Actually, yeah. Is there any question you have specifically, or do you want me to just dive into
Yeah,
my
yeah,
piece?
just dive in. I'm sure some questions will come.
Okay, sweet. So again, as I mentioned, there's like three phases to building, right? There's like ideation, talking to customers, and then actually building the thing. And so before you talk to customers, you have to figure out like, okay, what is it that I even want to build? What's even valuable, right? There's a app, or not an app, there's a website literally called Spy Talk, spytalk.com. And I'm not sponsored, by the way. This is just an app that I've been using. Um, and you can see what is performing virally on TikTok in terms of products, right? And so it's not just normal products, but like a lot of like apps and different like use cases, right? Like I like again, like sometimes I'll go on for fun to be like, okay, what industries are trending right now? Because a lot of these companies that are on TikTok, you would believe they're making like 300,000 in ARR, sorry, in MRR a monthly, like right, 300K a monthly just by doing these, like copying the strategy. They go on TikTok, they find what's working already, like what is currently already working. The same idea. It could be like one of those things where like like how when you go through a lawsuit and like you're entitled to money, whatever. There's an someone built where you can basically go and like get your money, like you can claim your money from like lawsuits and like whatever, all this stuff. Okay, it's like $9 a month. They promoted on TikTok. It went viral. Now there's like five others, people doing the same thing. They're all making money. It's like it's not like saturated. It's like they're all making money because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that you got there first. It matters that people know who you are, right? So if you can win the balls of the people, you win. And so I'd say by step process, you go to Spy Talk, look for the niche that you're in. I'd highly recommend looking for a niche that you actually care about. Like work on something that you actually are passionate about because you're going to build a better product. But find something you're interested in. Search up the niche in Spy Talk. You can easily do that. There's a search bar. You just search it up. And then it will show you all of the things within that industry that are trending well, that are already doing well. You look through them, find an idea you like, and then literally just recreate it with your own branding and maybe add a few things that you think it's missing, right? That again, as someone who has domain expertise, you know what is that you would have wanted. Add that in, and then start. And then after you build that, you could start talking to customers, right? And you'd be like, or when you get the idea, before even building it, when you get the idea, go talk to people. Like, is this something you want? I would say there's a lot of different ways you can go about this, and it ultimately depends on where you see yourself in 5 years. So, like, do you see this being a long, sustaining business? Do you see this being something like short and fast? Like, you just want to like quickly get in, make money, get out? Like, what's, sell it? Like, figure your priorities. This strategy is a fast way to start. It's a fast way to just get in the door and just start building something, and basically guarantee that it's possible to get customers because there's a bunch of people using it, right? And there's already traction validated. It just depends. It depends if you want to build something more novel or. I always say this is the best approach because then at least you're validating that you're going to go into an industry that actually has a market.
Right. And when we were talking to Suk, he mentioned how just getting your reps in trying to do the full business experience is super valuable because you learn more along the way. So if you can take something, even if you're just like tangentially passionate about it, it's something that interests you, you wouldn't mind seeing more of it in the world. It doesn't have to be something you're commit to for 5 years. If you just take a swing at it, see where you go. How far through the customer journey can you get? What are the introductions you can get through this? And like you said, finding your first few customers. Because then the next time, not only do you have this email list that you can build on, but you've actually had the reps and talking to people.
Oh yeah, and talking to people is the best investment you can actually make. I will say that talking to real people is the best investment you can make. Another big thing is like I say that perfection is the enemy of progress. We all get into the state and like again, it's innate. We all want to be perfect, right? We all want to have this perfect ideation of what we're doing, right? And most of the time that slows us down. It doesn't make us execute. When you spend all your time in preparation, and again, this is actually a big mental block I also see with a lot of my engineering friends, right? Builders, is they get so focused on the building that they don't actually execute on the rest of it. They're like, if I just make it really, if it's a great product, people will come. I'm like, unfortunately, that may have been how it was 20 years ago, but that's not how it is today. Right now, you're so much competition and so much noise that you need to stand out in some way to get traffic. And so I say it's even better to just start executing, even if you don't think you're ready. It's so much better to get started because once you get started, the ball starts rolling and the snowball starts getting bigger and bigger. And everything I've done, when I just got started, even with something small, smallest thing, break it down into small steps, right? Like you could be like making an Instagram account if you want to market on Instagram. Okay, just make the profile. That's one step down. Boom. Now you're halfway there. Now you just need to post a pic. Oh my God, that's another step down, right? Like break down everything into very small, easily manageable steps. If you do that, it will compound.
Excellent. To help the people that are going to take their first step, do you have any either war stories or just general lessons that you would like people to know so they can kind of avoid some of the pitfalls to try to make that first or second attempt a little more successful than it would have been if they went in blind?
Definitely don't start by building. I did that. And that was not a good approach because I had to pivot 4 times to completely different industries before we actually figured out what worked. Because again, we didn't talk to people before we started building. We just started building. We're like, people are gonna buy. If we build it, they're gonna buy. And that did not work like that, unfortunately. Right. But we learned a lot along the way that you need to validate the idea before you start building it. I would say another big lesson I would have is protect your time. At the beginning, you do have more time because again, you're still building, you're growing. And I'd say really focus on where your time is best spent because there's so many areas that you can spend your time and like prioritization becomes a very, very important skill. Because without prioritization, you try to do everything, and that's how you get burnout. Especially as a founder, when if it's your first time, you probably will have a one-on-one standoff with burnout at some point, right? And so to combat that, to make it so it's less likely that's going to happen, have a priority list. I do this through daily stand-ups, where basically I will write out everything I need to do, and then I will say, okay, here's everything I need to do. What is actually going to drive the needle in terms of my biggest goal? Like if it's getting customers, okay, what out of these items are actually gonna get me customers? I will say in the short term, sales led gets you customers fast, but product led gets you customers for the long term. And so at the beginning, sales led could be doing UGC, right? It's like you could be going on TikTok, hiring people easily, right? Paying them $20 a video, they post it, and then you just have a snowball effect and you see what goes, whatever, right? That's a whole different strategy in itself, but it's just essentially the foundational component of getting to market as in the way that like you think your audience or the target is going to resonate with that, whether that be cold email is kind of annoying. I mean, you can try it if you're really good at cold email, try it, but I will tell you it's very hard to master. One big
Right.
win.
It kind of hits the same way if you're trying to get your first customer or 10th customer. But in my mind, when I get to like the 100 point, that's where I don't have the time to do the same type of in-depth customer reviews. Do you have any advice on being aware of when you should start scaling back in terms of talking to users, or should you just keep doing that in perpetuity? Or how can we focus on managing our time to go along with that sales curve from your first user up to your first 1,000?
Mm. I think the founder should always continue talking to the customer through the life cycle of the business because again, like the founder is integral to the vision, right? If the founder does not know what it is the customer cares about, what it is that they're currently facing, then I mean, there's no point in them being the founder, right? Because they don't know the trenches of what their customers are going through. They're not going to build what they want, right? And that's why I see a lot of big companies starting to like become less relevant because the people in charge aren't talking to anyone, right? And so the basically the ladder of education through the company in terms of like the knowledge is not working its way up, and so like a lot of people it just becomes irrelevant at some point because you're not building for the customer anymore. I think as you grow, obviously draw back. You can draw back, hire different people, but have a way where the tribal knowledge in the organization as you grow continues to flow, right? There's a beautiful tool which all of you have probably heard about called OpenClaw. And you can build some very, very amazing AI employees that will help you scale automatically, right? And so there's some bots that you can even do that basically will analyze all your sales transcripts, all your calls, and they can give you guys updates in terms of like, here's the newest things that customers have been saying, right? On a weekly basis. Like, these are some pain points we heard this week. That's a way to keep everyone aligned. It goes to one Slack channel. It's like you can ask it questions. But again, at the end of the day, it's a way to keep everyone aligned as you grow, especially as you're scaling, you're talking to more people. You need some sort of system or methodology to help you bridge the gap between the knowledge between all the different people you have on the team.
Nice. And I'm so glad you brought up OpenClaw. Personally, I'm team Hermes agent, but exact same principle, exact same idea. And what I was going to ask before you brought it up was what you would recommend in terms of a marketing stack for people. What tools should they be aware of? What should they do to kind of empower themselves? Because a lot of people watching will either be solopreneurs or people just doing a project on the side and don't have the resources to do a full organization. But now with AI, so much is changing in terms of the landscape of what you need to use. So, what would you recommend people look into outside of these little autonomous agents to help them
Mhm.
get the message out there and get sense out of their interactions with people?
Yes. Okay. I'll give you my tool stack. CapCut for video editing. I again, okay. So I have to be honest. I use two video editors. I use CapCut and then I use Descript. I use them for different purposes. Descript, I use it for less editing type videos, right? Those are more like long form that I put on YouTube or podcasts, or whatever. That's when I use Descript. The CapCut, I use it primarily for short form content because what I've seen, I've tried all of them. I tried Edits by Instagram, I've tried CapCut, I've tried Filmora, like I've pretty much Premiere Pro, like everything. CapCut is just the fastest way to get a video edited and into the stream, the media stream. And again, the more media you have out there, the more you're well known, the more leverage you're gonna have, right? So I'd say CapCut, Descript if you're doing more long form content. But I'd say one of the biggest assets in my arsenal is actually Canva. And I'd say that because I use Canva in combination with Gemini, but I use Canva a lot for product imagery. For product imagery, marketing, like newsletters, everything I do goes through Canva because what I do is I have like a multi approach where I go to Gemini, I basically give Gemini an example of what I want to do, right? So say I see like a type of product imagery I really love. I go to Gemini, I give it source of inspiration, and I say, I really like these images from this website. Can you please outline the style and the structure of how these images have been put together? What like concepts, what design concepts have been used here? It gives me all of the list of like what's been used. I say, okay, here's what I want to do. And then I basically say, can you use, and I pick the design principles I like, or I pick all of them. And I say, can you actually create an image for XYZ with these design principles? And usually, usually it's not like a one shot thing. You have to like go back and forth a little bit, and be like, hey, can you change this, or can you like make it a little less like more dynamic or more 3D, whatever. But at the end of the day, it gives you some really really nice product imagery that like you can use in marketing, and it makes you just look really professional. I love Canva. I use it for pretty much everything when it comes to all of our imagery, in combination with Gemini, Nano Banana. But I would also say let's see what other tools I use. I use currently Google Sheets. Actually, Google Sheets super. I mean, like I use it for everything. If you saw my sheets, it's like crazy. Um, I use it for events, planning events. I use it for tracking marketing spend. I use it like we don't even have a CRM. My pipeline is like tracked through Google Sheets, and I just have a way of like disqualifying. When I disqualify, like they move into a different tab, and like you can even get AI agents to do this and facilitate that process too. I just do it manually because I'm like I want to see what's happening, like myself. I want to know, be on the cutting edge here. I use Instantly. Instantly is for emails. That's for cold outreach. That's more for like bigger scale if you want to like reach out to a lot more people. StreamYards is a good place to host live. It's kind of like Riverside, but more so for like live webinars and that kind of stuff. Figma is a good place to prototype. I also use that in combination with Gemini too. So it's like Figma and Gemini kind of dual approach. I use Clay. Clay again is a bigger spend. That is for go to market. That's where you basically can do all your lead gen. This is if you're doing sales motion. If you have the capital and you're doing sales motion, use Clay. It's a bigger learning curve, but you can automate your lead generation process that way. If you're doing sales led, that is. I'd say those are probably like my biggest like my and Claude Code. Claude Code again, like I use that for pretty much everything now. That's like my go to. Let me think. I think that's pretty much like those are the main ones that like these are like what you would need specifically. Apart from the social, obviously you need social channels, your own social medias. But if you want to get started, I'd say those are the easiest and most of them are free. CapCut, Canva, all the social channels, Google Sheets, they're all free to use.
Yep. No, awesome list. Great things to start exploring. And actually, the fact that you named a few that I use makes me, feel pretty good on my choices. One thing I'd like to pivot to slightly, when you're talking about events, I personally feel that in real life events and just like IRL stuff in general is going to become more and more important as this AI content is just kind of like flooding the internet and we're losing a lot of direct connection. There's always this little filter in between the person producing content and the person consuming it. So do you have any advice for people who are trying to just start dabbling where they might not have experience organizing an event, but they want to start putting themselves in front of people or just gathering feedback in person because they want those deeper connections rather than just like some text on a messenger app or something like that?
Yes, I would say go attend events. Go attend events. That's how I started. I mean, again, I now our a majority of our go to market currently is events driven, right? We host a lot of events, a lot of dinners, a lot of things. Before that, I had no idea what I was doing, right? And how did I learn? How did I get over the curve? It was literally by attending events. And what I did is I went to Eventbrite, went to my city, and I was like, what's going on in the city? Like, what am I interested in? What is like calls me? I want to see how they run it. I would literally go and there's some free events. I would just go and apply, attend them. I'd go to paid events. I'd go on Luma. I'd find events that were happening again in the city, and I would just go on this spree of attending events. Um, I'd meet so many people through these processes, and I'd be like, okay, this is how they run events. They run it. They make sure that they have a guest list, or they make sure that they first sign up a like this amount of people, and then they have to get the venue, and the venue is this process. And I'd go and talk to them. I'd be like, so when you were planning this event, like how did you go about getting the venue? Like how did you go about getting the catering? Is that someone that did you sponsor that? Is that something you paid for? What's the logistics behind this? Did you have security? Did you have to order like I saw security guards like is that something you paid for or did the event like and you just ask these questions and a lot of them will be like, oh yeah, no, this is how it works. Like I did this, I did this, I did this. I'm like writing down mental notes and then I'm just like, okay, implement. And the most important part is after you do all these things and you go to these events and you learn, it's like, okay, implementation time. Don't wait. After my first event I attended, I started implementing stuff because I was like, okay, these are learnings I can already start putting in now. And I started like planning my first event, right? And then the second one, and then the third, and the fourth, and then, you know, until now where we were planning like we do 4 major events every month, right? And so it started off very small and started to grow exponentially after that.
And it just speaks to how important it is to like learn from your experiences. Don't just blindly go through the process. Actually try to take something away from it and just see how you can make it better next time.
Exactly. It's all about experimentation. Again, like it's like A/B testing. Everything you do, you're gonna learn from it. There's always gonna be room like grows and glows in every situation, whether that be a webinar, whether that be an in-person event, you're always gonna have something to learn from it and improve next time. So it's just about having that growth mindset.
Amazing. Mano, this was awesome. The time just flew by. I learned a lot. I gotta put some work into this podcast to make sure I'm getting those hooks right. But before I let you go, is there anything you want the audience to know?
No, I just say go through life with positivity. I'd say my biggest advantage in my life is I'm obnoxiously positive about everything. And so it helps me get through all the tough moments because as a founder, I'm telling you, and I'm going to foresee this for you, you are going to go through dark nights, some dark nights where you're gonna think like it's like I don't know if I want to continue. I'm like I feel like there's so much easier things that I could be doing. But those are the times when those thoughts start to creep in and you start to feel that anxiety. That is when you know you need to push forward because usually the breakthrough is right after that point. So just keep on going. Again, I believe in you. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm a firm believer in that. And just be positive and always reframe any negative thoughts into positive thoughts that will help you learn and grow going forward.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Mano. The energy that came through the conversation was palpable, and it was really inspiring to know that so many people experience the same issues, and there is a playbook you can follow in order to increase the likelihood that the thing that you're working on today can be successful. In 2026, like I said in the beginning, it is easier to build than it is to sell, market, distribute, get traction. We can put together a prototype over the weekend without much thought. You just kind of have a back and forth with their AI coding assistant of choice, and then you create something that is valuable. But if nobody knows about it, it is not worth anything. And if you want people to discover your product, even if you're not selling, if you just want them to use it, give you feedback, help improve upon it, they need to know about it. So I hope you take some of Mano's advice into account. I am for sure. And I really hope that you just promote the things you build, because I'm sure what you're working on is amazing, but let's make sure people know about it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.